Hello and welcome to this video presentation on the Cavite Mutiny, a pivotal event in the Philippine history that marked the beginning of the Filipino nationalism and the end of the Spanish colonial rule. In this video, we'll delve into the background, events, and consequences of the Cavite Mutiny, as well as its profound impact on the Philippine nationalist movement. Let us recall the events and understand this significant historical event.
The Cavite Mutiny of 1872 was ignited by a complex set of circumstances. The Cavite arsenal and naval base where ships, weapons, and ammunition were stored and repaired, employed around 200 Filipino soldiers and workers. These workers enjoyed privileges such as exemption from tribute and forced labor. These privileges were granted by the previous Governor General Carlos Maria de la Torre, who was a liberal and sympathetic to the Filipino cause. However, when a new conservative Governor General Rafael de Izquierdo arrived in 1871, he revoked these privileges, increased their workload, and reduced their wages. These created a deep sense of discontent and betrayal among the workers. Fernando Lamadrid, a sergeant, emerged as the leader of the mutiny as well as his second-in-command, R11 Pedro. They had contacts with Filipino intellectuals and reformists, access to literature promoting democratic ideas, and they convinced their fellow workers that they could overthrow the Spanish regime. Their plan was to seize the arsenal, eliminate the Spanish officers, and signal other Filipinos to join the uprising. The mutiny was scheduled for January 20, 1872.
The mutiny, led by Fernando Lamadrid, a mestizo or half Filipino, half Spanish sergeant, and his second-in-command, Ariel Brent Pedro, erupted at Fort San Felipe in the Philippines. The mutineers seized the fort and killed 11 Spanish officers. They hoped for a citywide uprising, signaled by rocket fireworks, but it was a misunderstanding. Instead of a signal, they heard a burst of fireworks celebrating Our Lady of Loreto's feast. News of the mutiny reached Manila, sparking fears of a larger Filipino uprising. General Felipe Inoves besieged the fort and upon surrender, ordered his troops to fire upon the surrendering mutineers, including Lamadrid. In the aftermath, some Filipino soldiers were disarmed and exiled to Mindanao. Suspected supporters of the mutiny were also arrested and executed. The Spanish government used the mutiny as a pretext to crack down on Filipino reformists who had been advocating for more rights and freedoms. Many suspects were arrested and tortured, and they were falsely accused of being involved in or supporting the mutiny, even if there was little or no evidence to prove their guilt. The native clergy, or Filipino priests, who were served in local parishes, were also blamed for instigating the rebellion. The most prominent victims of this persecution was the three priests who are collectively known as the GOMBURZA. They are Jose Burgos, Jacinto Zamora, and Mariano Gomez. They were leaders in the secularization movement, which aimed to replace Spanish friars with native clergy and advocated for various reforms. Despite having no direct connection to the mutiny, they were accused of masterminding it. They were put on a brief trial by a biased military court, denied legal representation and witnesses, and subsequently sentenced to death by garrote. Later, the term GOMBURZA was used as a passcode for the campaign of Kataas-Taasang Kagalang-galangan ng Katipunan or KKK. It was said that they will avenge the unruly death of the three priests, and that's why they are fighting for the freedom of the country against the Spaniards.
The Cavite Mutiny of 1872 in the Philippines had profound consequences. This event, led by Filipino military personnel, highlighted the widespread discontent with Spanish colonial rule. The Spanish response was brutal, leading to the execution of many Filipinos and persecution of suspected insurgents. Nevertheless, the mutiny acted as a catalyst for change. It intensified Filipino nationalism, sowing the seed for future resistance against the colonial rule. The martyrdom of GOMBURZA, 3 Filipino priests unjustly implicated in the mutiny, fueled outrage and calls for reform. While the mutineers' immediately demands weren't met, the event exposed the injustice Filipino faced and the necessity for change. It ultimately set the stage for the broader Philippine Revolution, which saw the country's quest for independence from Spanish colonization. The Cavite Mutiny's legacy endures as it remains a symbol of Philippine resistance and the long and challenging journey toward self-determination.